All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, how you doing? A few people left here still. Whoa, can't see the hell. Guys, I'm Justin Stanford, entrepreneur, I guess, founded a few businesses, also a VC for my sins. My talk today, I was asked to give some perspective about VC locally in SA, so I thought, you've heard a lot about the plight of startups and the entrepreneurial lifestyle. So I thought perhaps I'd make a bid for the plight of the VC, because I think there's this notion that it's somehow glamorous and amazing and wonderful and rolling around with gold coins everywhere, but it's not. And the reason I'm actually dressed like this is because that's how I dress. Those that know me know that's how I dress to work. And secondly, is to emphasize that I'm an entrepreneur first and a VC second, and this is how entrepreneurs in Cape Town dress. So there we go. And I asked Twitter, and Twitter said do it, so what the hell. So yeah, 40i Capital is a VC fund which I helped to start, and as an entrepreneur who's built businesses before, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever actually undertaken. It's a surprising challenge. But where are we in VC in SA right now, in this ecosystem? I would say that it's still very nascent. It's still very small. Not so long ago, a whole bunch of us in the VC space we were going to that Weber Wenzel building in Cape Town to go to some event, and we all got in the elevator by chance. And as we were going up, I turned to Keert van Zyl and I said, "Jeez, if this elevator goes down, the whole industry's gone." So, but it was kind of true. So it illustrated that it is still small, but it's growing fast. But it makes me think. When I first started, I quit high school when I was 17. Came to Cape Town when I was 18 to follow my dreams. So this was more than 10 years ago. And so when I first started on this entrepreneurial tech startup road, there was nothing. I mean, I felt completely alone. There was no blogs, no Facebook, no Twitter, no community, no Silicon Cape, no events like this. I didn't know of any other single young person trying to do a startup. And then 4 years ago, when we started, Vinny and I had this idea to sort of come up with this Silicon Cape event idea to try and bring it out a bit. We really thought maybe about 100 people would be interested to come and hear about it, and more than 1,000 people came. Those of you who were there will remember, and it was quite a ride. And today there's nearly 7,000 members on that website. So in the last few years, since I got into this space, it has grown tremendously. There's been a hell of a lot happening. One of the most exciting things I've seen is more and more private individuals, more and more angels getting involved, as well as some new VCs starting to pop up. Because believe me, it's really lonely being one of the few VCs in town. And 40i itself is really a startup like any other. It's an entrepreneurial endeavor. And it's a pretty damn difficult startup. I mean, if you think it's hard to raise funding for a startup, try raise funding for VC in South Africa. That is not easy. It's an asset class that's viewed with tremendous disdain. We've got no culture of institutional LPs, of institutions investing in VC. In the States, you can go to all sorts of university endowments, you can go to insurance companies, and they all have an allocation for VC. And if you kind of can string a sentence together, you've got a shot at maybe raising some money. Here, we don't have that luxury whatsoever. At 40i, we've been fortunate enough to be able to raise money from two of the most well-known and substantial families in South Africa, and which is amazing. I still don't quite know how we pulled that off. But there we were able to, in the families, we were able to find a culture of, well, we come from SA, we believe in SA, we did well here, we would like to roll it back into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We'd like to see this happen for SA. So fortunately, that has been one of the avenues where we've actually been able to go and find some money to put into VC in this country. But it's relatively speaking, really small compared to elsewhere. And as one of the few VCs, one of the challenges we have is that in a well-functioning ecosystem, you have quite a few different stages of the evolution of funding a startup. Normally, in the really early stages, an angel, a private individual, an uncle, an aunt, a friend, a family, a fool, will finance the early, almost completely speculative part of a business in its beginning. Then a seed fund / incubator might take over from there. Then from there, an early stage VC, which is what we are, would come in, and then after that, you would have later stage funds that would pick up the ball from there when really big money is needed. We don't really have that ecosystem here. There's patches of it, elements of it, but you don't have the security as a fund manager of knowing that there's somebody before you and somebody waiting to come after you. So we have to cover 4 different stages of funding, which means we have to reserve huge chunks of our fund for any one opportunity we invest in. Often we're our own angel investor, we're our own follow-on investor, we're our own late-stage investor. So that means even if we raise money, we have to reserve at least half of it just to protect what we've already got. And a VC can only have about 10 companies. You've got to take a portfolio approach. And that's why a lot of people are under this impression that VCs are some kind of genius oracles that can pick winners. It's absolute nonsense. We know smarter or better than any other entrepreneur. The trick is to take a portfolio approach. You use a thesis, and you try and spread your risk, knowing full well that 5 out of 10 may well fail, 3 out of 10 may be sideways, and 2 or 3 hopefully will be winners. So if someone raises funding, it's not an indictment on them, oh, VCs think this is going to be brilliant. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that it forms a part of someone's portfolio strategy. So I think we shouldn't, don't get too focused on who raises funding and who doesn't. That's actually not necessarily that important. The other challenges that we've faced, it's unbelievable, but the legal framework here makes our job so difficult. I've never struggled with so much regulatory red tape before in a business in my life. The government wants us, as private investors managing private money, to get licensed with an FSB license. They want us to jump through all these hoops, do all these exams, but because of the way the legislation is drafted, we have to prove that we're experts in trading shares on the stock exchange to get licensed, which we're not. So we're supposed to get licensed, but we can't. So it's just one of the many bizarre regulatory obstacles that make doing VC in this country really difficult. But we're working on that. So what are we doing right and wrong locally? I think what we're doing right is there's loads of startups. It's amazing. In the last 3 years, I can't believe how things have grown, and the quality has just gone through the roof. I really think we're really getting there. We're seeing lots of strong teams. What are we doing wrong? I think we read way too much TechCrunch. Sorry, Mike. I think Mike's left already. But seriously, I think we get a little too sucked in by foreign perspectives when we should be focusing on our own perspectives and what we're good at. We need to recognize that we have strengths and weaknesses. We're not in Silicon Valley. We're here in SA. We're in Cape Town. So don't worry about what they're doing, what they're focusing on. Don't try and play in areas where they're already playing. You're just going to lose. But we have loads of unique opportunities, unique perspectives, things that they don't see, which I think are opportunities for us. And I think particularly the sort of TechCrunch thing, it tends to lend itself to too much of a focus on sort of sexy B2C type consumer internet businesses, which in my view are among the worst possible plays, because consumer plays, you don't see, for every winner, you don't see the thousands of corpses littered behind it that couldn't make it. It really takes a tremendous amount of funding and timing, time and a number of things to make a consumer play work. So I feel like we have opportunities more in the B2B and B2B2C avenue, building great products for businesses or businesses that service consumers, and who can bring distribution channels and the things that are difficult for us to get all the way down here at the bottom of Africa. But we've got great talent, so we can build fantastic products. Of that, I have no doubt, and we can sell them globally. There's no question. And because the funding ecosystem is small and a little bit fragile, we can't do what they do, where we have this reliance on funding and exits. We just can't do it, because there's a good chance you won't find that funding or that exit, and the business will die. So we need a greater focus on more sustainable, feasible businesses that are less reliant on funding, perhaps quicker to cash flow, can show some demonstrable traction. It'll make it easier to raise funding and on better terms. I think that's something to think about. The other thing that's wrong locally, in my view, is we have a massive supply-demand imbalance between startups and VCs. There are loads of startups, very few VCs. So a lot of deals chasing very little money, which is not healthy, because it leads to really bad valuations and bad terms, and that's not good. There's a balancing point. It needs to be equitable for a number of reasons down the track. So I feel like for a healthy ecosystem, we need to get that right. And we try and do that at 40i. We don't think about how much equity can we get. We think about what's the right balance and level of fairness that will align everybody's interests and give us all the outcome that we need. It's really important to make sure people are motivated. The other thing I think we need is more entrepreneur VCs. I came from that background, having built startups, now trying to build a VC business. And I think that that is useful for a number of reasons. It allows you to communicate with entrepreneurs in a way, sort of on a level playing field. It allows you to understand where they are and what they need and why. And it allows you the judgment to know when to let things just be a bit elastic and just allow change or allow milestones to slide by, because you understand what's happening in the business. You understand where that person is. You know, I think once you do a deal, you're no longer on the opposite sides of the table with each other. You're on the same side of the table, and you're on the same team. You've got to work together. So I look forward to seeing more business people, entrepreneurs, people with experience joining our industry, and then hopefully that will contribute to the body of knowledge. So that's the end of my time. In summary, I think we've got huge potential. I think the quality is great, and I'm very bullish. Thank you.